President Bola Tinubu has warned that reforms in the judiciary will fail if integrity is lacking, stressing that justice must be free from corruption and that the bench cannot serve as a refuge for compromise. At the opening of the 2025 All-Nigerian Judges Conference in Abuja, the president said corruption within the judicial arm poses a fundamental threat to the nation, weakens governance, and undermines the core of Nigeria's democracy. Meanwhile, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kudirat Kekereekun, raised the alarm over the growing trend of media trial to castigate judges or preempt judgments without understanding the law or facts.
We must acknowledge with candor that public perception of the judicial process has not always been favorable. Citizens have expressed frustration at delays, concerns about integrity, and anxiety over access to justice. These perceptions, whether wholly justified or not, cannot be ignored. They call upon us to reflect, to reform, and to restore. For ultimately, justice does not exist for the bench or the bar. It exists for the people.
It is no exaggeration to state that the survival of Nigeria's democracy has often hinged on the steadfastness of the judiciary. Our pronouncements and critical junctures in our history have preserved constitutional order and upheld the democratic will of the people. Yet, at this stage, we must go further. Beyond merely defending democracy, we must deepen it by ensuring that justice is not only done, but manifestly seen to be done in every courtroom, across every jurisdiction, and in every course.
Moving on, the federal government of Nigeria has ordered security and intelligence agencies to locate and rescue 25 female students abducted from the Government Girls Comprehensive Secondary School in Maga, Danko, Wasagu local government area of Kebbi State. In a statement, Information Minister Mohammed Idris says President Bola Tinubu has issued clear directives to security and intelligence agencies to locate, rescue, and safely return the students and to ensure that the perpetrators face justice. He says protecting every Nigerian, especially school children, remains a solemn responsibility of the state. The government says it is in the process of overhauling Nigeria's military, police, and intelligence agencies to ensure officers are more effective in preventing these attacks and that they respond with speed and precision whenever threats arise. It says Nigeria is also reinforcing cooperation with regional partners through ECOWAS, the African Union, and the Multinational Joint Task Force to secure the borders and disrupt terrorist and criminal networks. According to Idris, the federal government is deeply concerned and is in solidarity with the families of the students. More on this story, the governor of Kebbi State, Nasir Idris, has commiserated with the people of Danko, Wasagu local government, expressing concern about bandits crossing from neighboring states and countries, causing havoc in Kebbi villages. The governor, who met with community leaders and some parents during his visit to the community, says a joint security team with reinforcement from Abuja is tracking the bandits believed to have crossed from Zamfara State.
We have come, we have seen things by ourselves, and we see the parent that their children were being abducted. And we give them confidence, we give them our words that we'll do everything possible to ensure that their children are being rescued. And we also assure them that let them have confidence in us, and we'll make sure that the security agencies will do everything possible to do the needful.
What happened is that we were sleeping around 3:30 a.m. when we heard noises at the door. I woke my husband and told him the animals were disturbing us. Unfortunately, the bandits broke down our door and entered the house. They killed my husband. After killing him, they ordered me to go with them, but I refused. Just then, my daughter came out of her room. They forced her to follow them instead. They pushed her ahead of them at gunpoint and made her lead the way to the girls' hostel.
Moving on, the crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party deepened on Monday as rival factions loyal to Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde and Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike scheduled parallel National Executive Committee meetings at the party's National Secretariat in Abuja for today, Tuesday. Both factions are laying claim to the control of the party at a fiercely contested national convention in Ibadan on Saturday, which produced a new National Working Committee and expelled several prominent Wike loyalists. Despite their expulsion, Wike's associates issued a notice calling for an emergency NEC and Board of Trustees meeting at the party's national headquarters, Wadata Plaza in Abuja. The notice issued by Wike's ally, Samuel Anyanwu, directs BOT members to gather at 11 a.m., followed by the NEC at 2 p.m., with both sessions expected to address what the group describes as urgent internal matters. Meanwhile, earlier on Monday, the newly elected national chairman, Tanimu Turaki, visited the Nigeria Police Force headquarters to alert the authorities of an alleged plot by Anyanwu and his group to disrupt party activities. Turaki spoke with journalists shortly at a meeting with the Commissioner of Police, Dan Miller, to discuss plans to convene his first meeting with PDP stakeholders and to inform the police of reports of another counter-meeting at the party's National Secretariat in Abuja by the pro-Wike group. The PDP chairman, a senior advocate of Nigeria, says as a law-abiding party, the PDP is seeking protection against any other camp. He promised that members will defend the integrity of the party at all costs.
As law-abiding people, we've come here to tell the police that we are having our meeting tomorrow. And this will be the inaugural meeting since we left Ibadan after our election at our National Elective Convention. Now, we have seen flying in the social media a purported notice of BOT and NEC meeting given by people who, for all intent and purposes, are no longer members of this party as I'm talking to you today. Our National Convention are taking a decision to expel these elements from the party. And so they are no longer members of our party. And so we have reported the moves they are making to the police because we don't want any situation where there will be breach of peace. As leaders, more than any other person, we want peace to be sustained. We are going there, we'll have the offices opened, we will get in there and then begin to perform the functions for which we've been elected. I have assured the Commissioner of Police of the FCT that while we will ensure that no breach of the peace occurs, we will go there prepared to defend ourselves and our integrity as Nigerians, because Nigerian Constitution has given us the right to defend our persons, our lives, our properties, so that we are prepared to do. And let me reiterate again for avoidance of doubt. To defend our party, to defend this nascent democracy, we are prepared to lay down our lives.
Moving on to the economy, a report released by the National Bureau of Statistics says Nigeria's headline inflation rate has dropped to 16.05% in October 2025. According to the report, the inflation rate fell from the 18.02% recorded in September. However, it says on a month-on-month basis, headline inflation rose by 0.93% in October. The NBS Consumer Price Index and inflation report showed a slight easing in food prices, with food inflation declining by 0.37% month-on-month. The figure represents the 7th consecutive month of decline in the country's inflation rate this year. According to the NBS, the 12-month average urban inflation rate was 22.68% in October 2025, which is 11.84 percentage points lower than the 34.52% reported in October 2024. All right, so a number of stories before us this morning, Rufai. Of course, a very sad one. Yesterday, in the course of the show, we had talked about the abduction of the Kebbi, of the students in Kebbi State. Very briefly, I think it broke at that time. But also, of course, the PDP still in the news, the National Judicial Conference, All Nigeria Judicial Conference happening, and then, of course, the inflation rate dropping. I think we'd called it as well yesterday. Okay. Your take on these stories?
Ayo, inflation rate is going to keep dropping because we are doing some statistical voodoo. You know what we have done? When the rebasing happened, the food basket, the weighted average of food was over 50%. We reduced it to 40%. 10% in the weighted average of food is gone. When you reduce the parameter at calculating something that used to calculate at 50% before, you reduce it to 40%, then definitely it will show that food prices are dropping. Does it mean it's dropping in the people's pockets? No. In fact, analysts have talked about it, and that's why some analysts are saying that let's wait and see till the CBN reduces interest rates. That's why we know that there's a real knock-on effect. But you see, this statistical tubu medicine we are doing, it's not going to help us. It doesn't show the true face of the economy. Things are still on the rise. Things are still on the increase. That's that about that. Secondly, as regards the PDP, yes, the PDP drama continues. Now it's a fight for supremacy. It's not today they've always fought about Wadata House. This was the same Wadata House at some point. Minister Wike said they were owing grand rent. So have they paid grand rent now? Now that Iron One, his own faction, are taking over and they want to use the place. Now all of a sudden they've paid grand rent, have you? So you can see the games they play in the name of politics. Anyway, Turaki has gone to say, we are going to secure the place, we want to have a meeting here. The Wike faction too say they are going to have a meeting here. Last, now police go settle them. The drama of the PDP continues. We all know what Wike wants. In the peace deal, he said that they should not produce any candidates. We all know it's part of the grand plan of President Tinubu to only be the candidate in the next election, to weaken other political parties. And the talk about one party said, yes, I didn't believe it before. But once Wike put forward that idea, as said by some of the PDP people, I know that the talk about one party state is true and is germane and is obviously linked to President Tinubu. Let's not deceive ourselves. So that's why you can see disarray going on in other political parties. The Labour Party, despite court judgments and things like that, things have not still settled. Other political parties are in disarray. Ayo, this morning, as regards insecurity, I'm upset. A great general, General Uba, died on the battlefront because he wasn't saved on time. I know over the weekend they put propaganda. Yes, he was still alive. He sent a live video, but he's been unalived afterwards because the reconnaissance didn't get to him on time. And no media is doing enough work to celebrate our brigadier general. So a general that served this country all his life died on the battlefront. Can't we celebrate him and applaud him for his services to this country? Can't we put ourselves in the shoes of what his family will be going through by now? But guess what? We are not doing that. The vice president of the country is busy in Kogi accepting new decampees. You see, politicians will think of and they have rally in Plateau State, so they don't care about us. They always think of their own political interests. Look at the people in Kebbi. See, since Chibok girls happened, Ayo, over 1,500 students have been kidnapped. Is it the one that happened last year in Kaduna? Is it Kankara boys? Can we go on and on? Is it Dapchi? Isn't it shocking that those that campaign with Leah Sharibu and Dapchi, they are not speaking about Kebbi girls today? Because it's all politics and politicking. So they are constantly thinking about themselves, rather they can be thinking about the solution. See, just this morning, I got another very sad message. The people of Tiv, the Tiv people are suffering. There's a message coming out of, I think it's Stockholm local government area. There were killings yesterday in Amadu village. There's a protest going on there as we speak today. But guess what? The governor is concerned about his decamping party that will be held for him tomorrow, the governor of Taraba State. So you see, the politicians have failed us in totality. And when Nigerians are letting their lives down for this country, we don't celebrate them enough. So if everybody fails to celebrate you, General Uba, I celebrate what you did for this country. I celebrate your service. I doff my heart for you. May your service never be in vain in this country. And please, we must stop the insecurity. The Minister of Information released a statement this morning. They are always shocked at it. The question we should ask them, didn't they get intelligence that this was going to happen? Where did it fall across the crack? The police said they went there, they tried to repel them, but they jumped through the fence. Are the fence is in good condition? Maybe we had safe school corridor in this country. So you see, these are the problems. We keep coming here and talk over again. But you see, may Nigeria not keep happening to Nigeria? Because since Chibok girls, over 1,500 and more will still be kidnapped if nothing is done about it. And the like of Sheikh Gumi are still going out there defending the bandits like he did in a new interview.
Terrible. All right, Dr.
Okay,
Martin.
I would like to start my commentary this morning on a somber note, namely the death which has been announced by the family of Chief Dan Agbese. Chief Dan Agbese, he was a member of our tribe, the Nigerian League of Newspaper Columnists, and very active till the very end, running newspaper columns in the Daily Trust and also in The Guardian. He died, according to the family announcement, at the age of 81. He was a distinguished journalist, product of the University of Lagos, Mass Communication Department, and also of the Department of Journalism of Columbia University. He was editor of the Nigerian Standard, editor of the New Nigerian, general manager of Radio Benue, and co-founder of the Newswatch magazine, which redefines style and output, content in Nigerian journalism for more than 2 decades, which he co-founded along with Mr. Reyepu, Mr. Yakubu Muhammad, and the late Mr. Dili Giwa. But now at 81, he has dropped the pen. He was an author. He was an editor. At the time, he was even editor-in-chief of Newswatch magazine. Later, he and his colleagues went into consultancy work, and that's what he did, and he kept writing, showing that in this job, indeed, in journalism, you can practice this profession until your walking stick fails you. And there are many of this old brigade who remained committed to journalism to the very end. We commiserate with the people of Ado local government area of Benue State, of the Agbese family, the Newswatch family, and the Nigerian League of Columnists, and also the entire journalism community in Nigeria, on the passing of one of the most brilliant writers that we had in this profession. The good thing is that his generation continue to inspire other generations of columnists, of newspaper writers, by their example, by their distinction, by their achievement. May you rest in peace. Now, that's the news that came out yesterday from the family and the Nigerian League of Columnists. Now, to go to the other issues that have been raised. Let me start with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He was addressing the All Nigeria Judges Conference yesterday, and his main point is about the code of conduct for Nigerian judges. The first thing we must note is that the president just openly admitted that there is corruption in the judiciary. In fact, it was the president of Nigeria saying that there are judges that are corrupt. That was one takeaway for me. Number two, the president was also very clear in saying that to make sure that the judiciary in Nigeria is beyond reproach, beyond compromise, that it is a collective, collaborative effort. And he called on the judges to be faithful to their, profession. Now, in the code of conduct for judges generally, whether it's in Nigeria or elsewhere, the Judex is advised to be above board like Caesar's wife. And we have had issues in Nigeria here where people complain that the judiciary has been compromised, where the president used the word that it's a collective task that all of us must work on beyond the admittance. Number one, it is to the credit of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that under his watch he increased the remuneration for judges. You recall when Justice Datijo was retiring from the bench, what he was complaining about was the conditions of service for judges. how they were not allowed to go for conferences, how they were subjected to antediluvian practices, not even have the full complement of staff, and it was a lot of lamentation for Justice Datijo. Since then, President Tinubu has increased the remuneration for judges, but we still have a problem in that direction, which is about complete autonomy of the judicial sector. Now, you have here and again, now and then, state governors saying they are buying vehicles for judges. You hear that, so governor or minister has given apartments to judges. Now, this is the basis on which people say that, look, these judges are not well taken care of in terms of their welfare. The Tinubu administration may have done a lot, but there's a lot more to do. So it starts with President Tinubu himself. JUSON, there's a group called JUSON, Judicial Workers. They are always going on strike because of welfare and conditions of service. They too must be well taken care of because they are the ones in the registry, they are the ones around the place. If you compromise them, as President Tinubu properly identified, the will of justice will already have been compromised. And as he also argued, that is not good for national stability, is not good for democracy. The president spoke about collective responsibility. How about politicians who are always going for litigation during election time? After every election is considered boom time, chop time for the judiciary. Because many of these politicians who have in the process become bathroom lawyers, if you see a politician quoting the Constitution for you, you'll be shocked. It's because they are in and out of courts. Okay, can we have a system in Nigeria where the electoral system is transparent and we can reduce the amount of litigations after every election cycle? That has not happened. President Tinubu has an obligation in that regard. Then there is the National Judicial Council, which can discipline judges. That National Judicial Council, some people, I think including Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, has called for a review of that National Judicial Council. Can we also think in that direction to strengthen it? And then there are lawyers who are the go-between between judges and litigants. Well, I cannot mention anybody's names, but they exist. These lawyers who work actively to compromise the system. They know that we know them, but they will know themselves. They are part of the problem. And the NBA has what they call a disciplinary committee. However, these lawyers who are always compromising judges, but at the end of the day, even when you pay a judge, even if you pay 1 trillion naira, the important thing is about commitment. Judges must respect the oath of office, the code of conduct for judges, which talks about fairness and impartiality, which talks about hearing the other side, which talks about independence of the judiciary. Then you talked about inflation. They say it has come down 16%. You said this is the 7th consecutive month. My own point about this inflation coming down, inflation moderating, is that when are we going to see the effect? The economists, the professional economists, they tell you, they say, oh, it will take months before you see the effect. I had that like the first quarter of this year when they said it has moderated. Where are we now? I think we're in the 4th quarter. Yeah. We have not seen any effect. So there must be more transparency and accountability on the part of the Nigerian National Bureau of Statistics. They say, for example, that food inflation has gone down, maybe about 0.36%. Okay, why is it that wives have not reduced chop money? Because they are the ones that go to the markets. If they have to set up a bureau to investigate wives, the domestic setting, why is it that NEPA bill, PSCM or whatever they call them now, disco or whatever, it's always going up? So these are indicators of inflation, so that husbands will not be bearing burdens that they do not deserve. And the cost of living crisis has not abated. So it's not statistics. Statistics is not enough. As for PDP, well, I think it's important to ensure security. Wadata Plaza, I'm told that Samuel Anyanwu that one faction has expelled, he's already there. He arrived early in that place. So if he's there with his team, and then Katie, Kabiru Tanimu Turaki SAN, who is the chairman of the party from the Ibadan Convention, if he also goes there with his team, the police have a responsibility to ensure that there is no breakdown of law and order. The main objective within the political arena should be political stability. The unfortunate thing, however, in case they don't realize it, is that, look, President Tinubu has, you may say President Tinubu has already won a second term. Because if the main opposition party cannot organize itself, so what is the purpose of all this? But we still need the opposition. Yes. And that is why people should lend themselves common sense. The voice of reason should prevail. Being in the opposition does not mean being anti-government. It means creating a platform for you to be able to make contribution to national development. But I'm skeptical about the PDP being able to challenge President Tinubu. We might as well just declare the battle won and lost, and then let President Tinubu do his second term. Maybe that will give the PDP and other parties to organize themselves properly.
All right, so I believe that when we talk about the transparency of the judiciary, what we see happening in the PDP is part of the challenges that we have with the judiciary, because they could also be blamed as the reason why we have such confusion in the PDP as we see today. We recalled in the days leading to the convention, national convention of the PDP, how there were conflicting court judgments from coordinate courts and preceding confusion and total chaos, such that now not only do we have factions of the PDP, we have factional BOT, factional NEC, and you can also say that this is part of the problems why we have an opposition that is not strong enough. So part of the problem in the PDP can be put on the doorstep of the judiciary, if I'm being very honest. And that's why President Tinubu, in addressing the judges yesterday, had said that the courts must not become a center of a sanctuary of compromise. That's the term he used. It must not be a sanctuary of compromise. And the perception of the justice system in Nigeria is seen in many quarters to be compromised. And a number of things can be done. Every year we have the All Nigeria Judges Conference with a number of issues or conversations highlighting the many problems that belabor the judiciary. But what we're looking forward to is solutions. And I dare say that a solution can be had. We need stronger institutions if we want a thriving democracy. And we see this a lot of times on this table. And so the president spoke well. But beyond speaking well is a political will to actually strengthen the independence of the judiciary, which we have called for a number of years. Because if we do not have a thriving justice system, it affects a number of areas beyond the politics and the governance of the country, affects investor confidence. We understand how conflicting judgments or judgments gotten from different courts can affect investors who do not have confidence in the fact that they would get justice for any reason whereby they had to approach a court based on business decisions or business conflicts. And so these are some of the challenges we talked about. But the president also talked about technology being perhaps a game changer. And he made a commitment yesterday during his speech that he was going to drive technological reform in the judiciary so that we're able to see digitalization of judgments whereby people can easily access. And I believe I don't know, it was Dr. Abato Friday, I spoke about it yesterday, whereby there will be an online portal where we can see judgments clearly, especially with what happened with the PDP over the course of last week. So a number of things can be said, but beyond that is that if there's no will to strengthen the institution, one of the quick wins, I would say, would be perhaps let us look at this issue where we have political leaders, especially governors, and in some instances ministers, in the term of judicial welfare, buy cars, build houses for judges. I know that, yes, the judge is meant to be neutral, meant to be above the board of being able to be influenced in his decisions. But when you have governors who come and say they are trying to make the welfare of the judges better, buy a retinue of cars, buy houses, how do we expect the independence in that way and not some form of tilting in the favor of such individuals. And so if you look at it from history, so many governors in 2022, Governor Wike, who was governor at the time of Rivers State, built a judges complex for the judges in Rivers State across different levels. He's not the only one that did it. Governor Sanwo-Olu did it in 2020. Governor Inuwa Yahaya of Gombe State did it in 2025. Governor Sheriff Oboriri. It has now become the norm for governors to come in. There's nothing wrong with ensuring the welfare of judges, but there's a lot of things wrong if all of a sudden we are seeing cars being bought for it. Why can we not have a system that provides for the welfare of judges devoid of the individual or personality, behind? And that's why we continue to talk about the independence of the judiciary, especially financial autonomy for the judiciary. If we don't have that in place, we'll continue to talk about transparency upon year after year, year in, year out, with nothing being done about that. Again, I repeat, if we must have a thriving democracy, if we must inspire investor confidence, we must have strong judiciary. Now, moving on to that for what I consider perhaps the most important story for this morning, which is the unfortunate incident that happened in Kebbi State with 25 of our girls being abducted. Right from the time of the Chibok girls in 2014, where there was a nationwide outcry, an international outcry around the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, we have seen, unfortunately, that lessons have not been learned. Because if lessons had been learned, we should not be in 2025, 11 years later, still be talking about another abduction of girls in schools. No child, no student should have the fear of going to school with the potential of being abducted or being harmed whilst they're in school. It means the state has failed them. And so when we look at the consequence of this, it's not just a threat on the security of Nigeria, which is now on the hot burner, especially with the United States stance on it. It's a threat to education, because when we talk about the number of out-of-school children in the north especially, and how education, a lack of access to education and infrastructure affects or even is an inspiration for indoctrination into terrorism, we cannot turn our eyes away from ensuring that we fix this problem that has continued to belabor the northeast and the northwest. Beyond that is also, like I mentioned, when we talk about investors, Nigeria becoming an investor haven, we cannot talk about that if we cannot guarantee the security of our students in school. It shows that we are unserious as a government in terms of tackling this issue. This is almost 24 hours since the girls have been abducted, and what we're still getting this morning are condolence messages, shocks, and oh, we're sorry, we will do something about it. 24 hours later, that's an indictment on this government. By this morning, we ought to have heard that some form of rescue operation or some form of recovery has been made for those 25 girls. And finally, on the PDP secretariat, it has been called again for heightened security. It's just chaos upon chaos. Two factions who obviously, one faction not working for the good of the party, obviously. We see the video right there. That's what's happening currently this morning. We can almost see like a battleground. Soldiers or security operatives that should be spending their time securing the borders and trying to ensure peace and security in Nigeria are being deployed for a party to have sanity with grown, when our democracy ought to have been mature. So this is quite sad to see, and I hope that some way or the other, both factions, I doubt it very much, but both factions will come to the reconciliation table and make some sense in order to bring the PDP back to being the strong opposition party that it once was. We'll definitely bring you updates on that. We've said it that both factions have called for meetings this morning, and we can see that both meetings are meant to happen at the same venue. We call for peace, and we hope that the security agents would keep peace and order in Wadata Plaza.